Hey everyone. So this is your asynchronous lecture for products and brands, the first of our 4Ps. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do in this lecture is we're going to discuss what is a product. Then we'll talk about classifying products. And then lastly, and in a very important section, we'll talk about what tools we can use to help design products, as in picking attributes that our products should have. Then kind of the second half of the lecture, we'll talk about brands, and then we'll also talk through the survey results. I've selected a few responses that I think are quite good, and we can kind of talk through those. So to begin, what is a product? We'll start with a very broad definition. A product is anything that can be offered to a market for attention, acquisition, use, or consumption that might satisfy a need or a want. A service is an activity, a benefit, or satisfaction offered for sale that is essentially intangible. That's kind of the key difference between a service and a product. The service is intangible and does not result in ownership of anything. Okay, so sometimes we talk about products and services as different things, but when we use the kind of first definition of a broad product, this very broad definition, and then actually we see that service sort of falls under that category, right? There's nothing in that first definition about, a physical object. So it's true that, we can distinguish services from sort of more general or from more specific kinds of product that are physical objects. But in this course, we're often going to talk about services as a kind of products with special features. A company's overall market offering can be a pure good, so a physical thing. It can be a pure service, but it's often a combination of goods and services that come together in this overall market offering. So what stage of the marketing process are we at right now? So right now, we've been kind of proceeding through this process, and we're here. We're at the point of constructing a marketing program that is meant to deliver this value, to create and deliver this value for our consumers. Right? So we've identified a need. We've kind of come up with our core product or service to address that need, and we've identified target segments that would potentially be good to serve. And so today, what we're talking about is sort of making product attribute choices that are sort of going beyond just addressing the underlying need, and in the context of a particular target segment that we want to serve, right? So to make it a little more concrete, you can think about, secondary needs that we're designing towards, or particular preferences of our segment that we're designing towards. So even once we've satisfied the main need, we're kind of serving them more efficiently and effectively than competitors as per the marketing management orientation. So we can break out the levels of a product, of a market offering, into kind of 3 different layers. Inside kind of the lowest layer is the idea of a core benefit. Beyond that, you have the actual product, which contains a bunch of particular attributes: the brand, what quality level, packaging, design, features. Beyond that actual product, that sort of physical thing, we have the augmented product. Delivery and credit, installation, warranty, after sale service. So this is the sense in which, products, core products with kind of their particular branding and et cetera, often come with some extra layer of service or extra layer of sort of engagement beyond the product itself. So let's look at an example. Here we have a pile of what looks like breakfast cereal. The core benefit, is satisfying a physical need for nourishment, right? That's what this is doing. This is some kind of a food. The actual product, it has this particular shape. So that was designed, that was chosen. We have the packaging that it came in, right? If you've eaten breakfast cereal, most of it comes in this sort of 2-layer plastic inside wrapper and a cardboard exterior. You have everything that goes on the exterior. So the labeling, the branding, right? This is called Cheerios, the brand of the overall parent company, General Mills. And you have some features that are being, some attributes of the product that are being emphasized. And then you have all this front stuff, these extra features as well. On the exterior of food packaging, you'll see nutrition facts, right? And nutrition facts speak to the ingredients. All the ingredients were chosen deliberately as part of this product, including not just the ones you'd expect, full grain oats, sugar, etc., but also we have, trisodium phosphate, calcium carbonate, etc., right? Pyridoxine, hydrochloride, which are all deliberate choices that are being included. Actually, this is something that you can get from a doctor with a prescription. So we'll come back to what this thing is. Now, for the augmented products, right, are there any choices being made here by General Mills? Well, it kind of feels like maybe no, right? Delivery and credit, installation, warranty. You don't need any of that for breakfast cereal. But we do have a little helpline or comment line on the back of the package, as well as some websites that you can visit. Right, so there is after-sale service. Actually, you can call this number and contact some General Mills support office. And when you visit one of these websites, you'll see some activities that you can do with Cheerios. You'll see recipes. These are a lot of decisions being made by General Mills. The question is, what's the purpose of the augmented product here? Right, we can see that a line that you can call for help might be useful even with Cheerios. But what about all of these extra things on the website, right? So, there's an idea here that Cheerios is creating this extra layer, this augmented product, to create some kind of maybe emotional connection. Here they describe something they call the Cheerios Effect, where two Cheerios in a bowl will naturally float together. And they weave a story around that, right? But this could be seen as a promotion, but it's blurring the lines between an augmented product and a promotion. But it's all a deliberate choice that the company is making to embed this or to add this on to Cheerios. Right? So we can see there's lots of decisions that are required for product planning. A market offering may be a good, it may be a service, but in our modern era, where it's very easy to have an attached website or a robot staffed helpline, traditional product offerings are almost always augmented with some supplementary service, right? The idea behind that is that experiences are increasingly used to differentiate offerings. Companies try to incorporate some emotional content into the product. Why? Again, to differentiate, right? In the minds of their customers, what's the difference between, say, Cheerios and the grocery store brand, which looks very similar, right? Potentially the experience and the emotional content associated with Cheerios, right? So this sense of using the augmented product to differentiate. Okay, good. So what are the decisions that you need to make with your product at this stage in the process? So you do have your attributes, product quality, features, style and design, packaging and labeling. These are all things that are intended to differentiate your product from its competitors, right? So recall what does that mean to differentiate? So you've picked your target segment. You're trying to serve them more efficiently and effectively than your competitors. And differentiation is how you do that, right? So changing physical attributes of the product or actual attributes of the product and how it creates actual value. And then you also have changing advertising, packaging, and labeling. So positioning your product in consumers' minds, okay? another decision you have to make regards branding, which we'll come back to in the second half of the lecture. So we'll now talk a little bit about classifying products. So we've looked at the different levels, core, actual, and augmented. So we often divide products and services into classes. Consumer versus business is our kind of first step. There'll be kind of 4 parts to this classification of products. And at the end, we'll kind of come to, well, what's the point of doing this classification? For now, let's focus on sort of the actual process of classification. So consumer products are a product or service that's bought for personal consumption by final consumers, okay? So this is not something that's being used in a business. It's not something that's being used as an input to create more value. It's for personal consumption in the household or outside the household, but by kind of by the final consumer. Versus business products, these are products that are bought in order to add value for further processing or for use in conducting a business, okay? So can a product be a consumer product and a business product? Of course, it can, depending on who it's sold to, right? So a lawnmower bought by a lawn mowing service will be a business product versus a lawnmower bought by a consumer to mow their own lawn will be a consumer product, okay? Within the category of consumer products, we can think about 4 different types. We have convenience, shopping, specialty, and unsought products, okay? And as a preview of why classification matters, well, the type of consumer product matters when you're just making decisions about the other 3 Ps, when you're deciding things like price, place, and promotion. So convenience products are products that consumers typically buy frequently, immediately, and with very low buying effort and little comparison shopping, right? These are kind of that low engagement buying process that we talked about in lecture 3. Things like dish detergent, things like newspapers, candy, fast food. The typical features of these products are they'll have a low price, they'll be ubiquitous, so available almost everywhere, and they'll have mass promotion by their producer, right? Relatively indiscriminate, relatively little targeting, right? So an undifferentiated targeting strategy, okay? Because everyone uses them, right? These are products that almost everyone will use, and we promote to kind of differentiate and in order to let people know where you can find them and what the price is, right? To make sure it seems competitive. So in this case, toothpaste of these 4 products definitely looks the most like a convenience product. Shopping products are products that customers, when they're in the process of selecting and purchasing, they usually compare on traits such as suitability, quality, price, style, you know, any kind of attribute that you kind of weigh one against the other. So here we would have less frequent purchasing, typically higher prices than convenience goods, and more shopping effort is put into comparisons, right? Why is that? Well, you know, there's a lot of attributes, so you have to think a lot harder about which attributes you value. There's less frequent purchases, so you know less about it. So you need to educate yourself kind of before you even consider buying. You know, the price is higher, so the stakes feel a little bit higher. If you make the wrong choice, you're kind of out the best, like you don't have the best product, and it's durable. So you have to live with your bad choice for quite a while, right? So here we also see selective distribution in fewer outlets. So it's harder to find, right? Consumers are willing to seek out a store for a shopping product, whereas someone is typically not willing to seek out a store for something like a candy bar or toothpaste, right? They're just kind of passing through someplace that happens to be selling it. Right? We also see mass promotion with shopping products. Why do we have mass promotion? Consumers might not know where to buy. Recall that because it's a less frequent purchase, people just aren't really thinking about it. And consumers might actually kind of need to go somewhere they don't usually go. So of these 4 products, the microwave is definitely the one that seems most like a shopping product. Now, what about specialty products? These are products with very unique traits or brand identification. These are products for which potential buyers are willing to make a special purchase effort. Okay, so these products will be typically ones that feature low price sensitivity or a high price. Or sorry, these two things go together. Low price sensitivity with a high price. Very exclusive distribution, so difficult to find, with very carefully targeted promotions. Most people are not potential buyers of a specialty product. So you want to target your promotions carefully to make sure you're not wasting your advertising budget. And of these 4 products, probably the helicopter, yeah. Lastly, we have unsought products. These are products that the consumer either doesn't know about, perhaps a new product, something that they've never encountered before, or they know about them, but they don't normally consider buying them, right? So known products that are still unsought, you can think about things like, funeral services, life insurance is the example we have here, donating blood, things like that. Whereas unknown, unsought products would include, yes, most major new innovations that haven't really made it through the first stage of the adoption process. Okay, prices really vary, right? Distribution also varies, but often here you'll see aggressive advertising and personal selling. Either it's a product that they're really working hard to try to get you to consider, about it, but they want you to start actually thinking about it, or it's a product that you don't know about, in which case definitely they need to advertise to you, right, so that you can be informed. So life insurance is definitely the thing here. Now, again, when we classify these products, we do it with the intention, with the goal of having it maybe help us make a decision, right? One of those potential decisions we want to make is sort of when should we be targeting consumers with promotions? So when I say when, I mean at what point in the buyer decision-making process, right? So for instance, if you're a convenience good, then you're going to typically want to target at the information search level. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule. Each of these 4 types of consumer product, I'll have kind of point to a stage at this process, but it's not kind of exclusive. So convenience, I think, should go mostly with information search. Why? Well, the information you're searching for is not necessarily like attributes of the product, but just kind of where to get it and where the best price is, right? You're just kind of like looking for that necessity, close and cheap, right? So you want to figure out where to get that. You kind of know why you need it. And in terms of evaluation of alternatives, typically you've already picked your favorite brand, right? For a shopping product, I think evaluation of alternatives is where you want to focus your efforts when you're sort of promoting to people who are interested in your shopping product, because they're very motivated to search for information. They kind of are at the stage that they already kind of know why they need it. But you really want to make sure that your product stands out amongst the other products, right? For a specialty product, I think need recognition can often be the case. So, why do you kind of need this product for kind of the niche market that you're targeting to? And for an unsought product, definitely need recognition as well, right? Why do you need to do this? Like, what value will this thing provide for you, right? Again, this is kind of just rough rules. Of course, all of these would also like to be targeting at the purchase decision stage, trying to get you to buy the product. But this is kind of a good guideline. So our next part of classifying products, so after consumer types of product, is product life cycle. So at what stage in its life is the product? And we can kind of break down a product's life cycle into maybe 4 stages: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So we have this kind of simple graph here where time is sort of proceeding from left to right. And on the y-axis, we have sales and profit, right? So over time, we'll kind of, from introduction, like sales is quite low and profit will often be negative. There'll be a growth period and then sort of a maturity period. Each of these time periods is depicted as being the same size. They're not. For many products, maturity lasts for decades and decades, right? So if you're thinking about classifying your product according to this, figuring out whether you are sort of where you're at is typically not the hardest part. Once you've figured out where your product is at in terms of the product life cycle, then you can basically think, okay, what should that tell me? If it's an introductory product, focus on need recognition and information search. If it is a product that's in the growth phase, if it's in the growth phase, information search and evaluation of alternatives, right? If it's in the maturity phase, everyone knows about it. Everyone knows what it does, what need it satisfies. So, help people pick your product by targeting them when they're kind of weighing different attributes. And for a product in decline, typically you just want to convince people to buy. Oftentimes this will mean cutting the price, right? As opposed to advertising heavily. This is sort of analogous to the sort of harvest decision in the BCG growth share matrix, right? So when we classify our product into these different categories, it gives us a baseline recommendation for how we should be picking price, place, and promotion, right? We can start from the baseline recommendations and then branch out from there, right? So let's kind of take a look at a few examples. So here's kind of the 3 things that we'll be thinking about. Is this consumer or business? Is this, what type of product is this? Like what type of consumer product? And at what stage in the product life cycle are we? Okay. So here's an example. Fairly popular product in Canada, a condo, right? But here we have an advertisement for this thing, M City for condominiums, new downtown Mississauga condos starting from the 500s. Okay. So, from your perspective, you are this condominium company. You should be thinking, all right, how do I want to classify my product that will give me some guidance basically on how I should be making some other choices, right? Now, what other choices do I have to make? Well, mostly promotional choices, right? The price is kind of set, and where it's located, well, it is where you build it, right? So you're kind of thinking about promotions. So how should we classify downtown condos? Well, it's definitely a consumer product. And then what type of product is it, right? Could be one of 4, right? Unsought, specialty, convenience, or shopping. In this case, it does have a high price, which you might be tempted to think, okay, maybe specialty product, but everyone kind of needs a place to live, right? Now the question is, does everyone need a downtown Mississauga condo, right? So you could probably argue here, is it specialty versus is it a shopping product? I would lean towards shopping product, right? A product where you're kind of considering the alternatives fairly carefully and sort of weighing those different options. And the product life cycle. So, this particular product is a brand new construction, but this type of product, condominiums, that's what you should be thinking about when you're classifying it in the life cycle. And definitely this is a very mature product, right? Houses have been around for a long time, always needed them, probably always going to need them, right? So at this point, we're kind of in the maturity phase of our life cycle. So we kind of have a mature shopping product definitely targeted towards consumers. So how should that influence our promotional activities? Well, we should be focusing on consumers' decision-making at the evaluation of alternative stage. So kind of helping them see our kind of key attributes, whatever secondary needs our product addresses better than other products. And given that it's in sort of the mature phase, that's sort of reinforced that evaluation of alternatives is the right thing to do. Okay, here's another product. You can see from the description, home office, height adjustable electric standing desk. Okay, so we have a standing desk here. Fairly new category of products. Hasn't been around for that long, especially not in the home, right? So we think, okay, what kind of product? Definitely, it could be consumer or it could be business, right? Business products, business office furniture is definitely a thing. But let's focus on consumer. So let's suppose this is sort of a consumer product perspective, that the firm is thinking my target segment is going to be mostly people working from home. And then we think, okay, what type of product is this? Again, we have convenience, shopping, specialty, and unsought, right? So here, it's probably not convenience. Could be an unsought product since it's fairly new, right? Most people may not know to kind of be looking for this. Alternatively, you might think that it's sort of a specialty product if it's only targeting a particular kind of person, sort of a home office worker. That's something that you might have said maybe pre-COVID. Now, during COVID, with everyone working from home, you might argue, no, this is maybe more of a shopping product. So we're kind of thinking it could be shopping, could be an unsought product, right? Product lifecycle, we can definitely say that this is sort of in the new and sort of growth phase. So here we're kind of thinking focus on need recognition. So what needs does this address? Not just working from home, being a desk, but also, being maybe a healthier, more flexible alternative to working from home. So focusing on need recognition and focusing on perhaps information, right? So information search and evaluation of alternatives, given that we're in sort of the growth phase, right? So where to find it and how to evaluate it compared to its competitors. All right, perfect. Part 3, products versus services. So recall that services had this special feature of intangibility. So that's kind of one key feature. We also have inseparability. What's this? Services cannot be separated from their providers. So a product, once you've bought it from the store, you kind of have it on its own. A service, whoever is providing that service is kind of a key part of the service experience, right? So inseparability, you can't kind of split up who's delivering the service from the service itself. The qualities of those things are interlinked. Perishability, services cannot be stored for later sale or use. And variability, this kind of goes with inseparability a bit. Quality of services depends on who provides them, when, where, and how, right? So, these are kind of the key features of services, pure services, compared to physical goods. We care about services because in a modern economy, and in most Western economies, we have a huge share of the GDP is devoted just to services, right? So when we're thinking about what decisions we need to make for a service, well, we need to care, based on this diagram, we need to care a lot more about who is it that's delivering our service to the final consumer, right? Now, that's kind of a difficult problem because when we think about who's delivering the service, we're thinking about people who, service workers, employees of the company. And these people need to be incentivized, even though they're working for the company, their interests aren't always aligned with those of the company, right? So the principal agent problem describes how do we incentivize our employees. what is the principal agent problem? A firm that's the principal retains all the profits from the activities of the agent. So the better the agent does, the more the principal earns. However, for most agents, that's often not the case. The better the agent does, they just get a fixed salary. So you can already see that there's a misalignment of incentives. So how do we understand this in the lens of marketing? How is this kind of relevant here? Well, the idea is that we need to think about incentivizing employees. And one avenue for that is internal marketing, right? So classifying our product as a service and describing how important the service component of our market offering is allows us to say how much should we focus on internal marketing compared to external marketing. Internal marketing is anything we're doing to incentivize our employees. You can think about things as simple as, money incentives, right? Sales commissions, or, gamification. So basically having employees sort of compete to be, employee of the month is just a way of incentivizing employees, offering kind of these sort of bonuses, and also offering, kind of trying to create a company culture, right? Internal marketing, basically making the employees feel as if they're sort of part of this corporate, larger corporate family, right? So the other element that you need to focus on in a service-oriented market offering is interactive marketing, right? So the company markets to customers, but when customers are dealing with your company's employees, they're also receiving marketing through those employees, right? Perfect. So these are our kind of different classifications. What kind of product is it, consumer or not? And then what type of consumer products? And then we have the life cycle classification, and then product versus service, right? How important are each of those two things to our overall market offering? Good. So next thing we'll talk about is product feature selection. Right? This is a super important thing, right? In the beginning example, Cheerios was making, or General Mills was making a lot of decisions about the features of their products. One of those features I mentioned, the chemical that you could get a prescription for, that feature was an anti-mold attribute. So why would there be kind of an antifungal, anti-mold ingredient in the cereal? To give it a longer shelf life, right? So what led Cheerios to make that decision, to include that ingredient, to give it a longer shelf life? How did they make that decision? Okay. There's basically two approaches that companies take to make their product feature selections. And they're based on two different types of data. First type of data is a revealed preference approach. So a revealed preference approach will lead to a characteristics-based demand function. That's what we'll focus on mostly in this class and in this course. The second type of approach is a stated preference approach in conjoint analysis. Okay, so let's put some actual meat to these definitions. What does it mean to select product attributes using revealed preferences? So what we do here is we see what people actually buy, and we infer what people value based on what they've chosen out there in the marketplace. So when we decide to create a new product, we know what attributes people value based on what they've already chosen, right? So in order to create or to do this analysis, we need to observe prices, we need to observe market shares, and we need to observe product attributes for multiple products, okay? The intuition is that we're comparing, two products at a time that are identical, except for a single product attribute, okay? And what we'll do is we'll infer what attribute people value based on differences in market shares, conditional on differences in price and quality. Let's do an example to make this even more concrete. So in this example, we have different types of car. These are all Mini Coopers. And the only thing that's different between these cars is the color, okay? So when we look at a table of the different car colors, so here I've just focused on blue and black, we have each one is priced at $49,000. So the color doesn't affect the price. What we can see in the far right column is the market shares. So the market share of the blue Mini is 0.4, and the market share of the black Mini is 0.2. Okay, so those add up to 0.6. So that's not the complete market. So all the other colors also account for some, some market share. But here we're just focusing on blue and black. From this table, we can infer whether people value blue or black more. And we can see that blue is valued more. Why? Because the prices are identical, the cars are identical. The only thing that's different is the blue one has more market share at the same price, suggesting that what people value is a blue car because they're buying more of it, right? Their choices tell us what they value. Okay, another example, here we have two sweaters in kind of the UTM University store. We have this one, which has kind of a simple design and no hood. And then we have this one, which has kind of a more complicated design on the front, and it does have a hood, okay? The left one is $29.99 and has 0.4 market share, so it's 40% of sales. And the one on the right is $49.99, and it has 0.6 of the market, so 60% of sales, okay? So what can we infer about whether people value a complex design and about whether they value a hood? We can see that even at the higher price, consumers buy more of the fancier sweater, right? So we can see that people value something about this sweater, right? They value it enough that even at the higher price, which, no one likes paying a higher price, but even at this higher price, they're willing to buy more of it, okay? So can we learn anything about what people value? The answer in this case is unfortunately no, because we've changed two things at once, right? We have a more complex design, but we also have a hood. There's basically two options here, or there's a lot of options. We can kind of talk through them. One option is people value a hood a lot. They love a hood on a sweater, right? But they hate the front. They hate the more complicated design, but they value that hood so much that they're willing to buy this one on the right, even though it has a design that they don't really like, right? So it could be the case that if it was just a matter of design, actually the one on the right would sell less, but because it has the hood, it sells more. So that's one option. People really like a hood and they don't like a design. They don't like this design. But you can make the exact same argument in reverse, right? Maybe what people really like is design and they don't like the hood, right? Could also be that people like both the hood and the design. The only thing we can say for sure is that people must like at least one of these things, the hood or the design. If people didn't like either of these things, there's no way that this sweater on the right would sell more than the sweater on the left at a higher price, right? It would sell less even at the same price because it would have two things that people don't like. So that's all we can infer, that people like at least one of those things. But that's not very helpful for us if we're trying to design a new sweater to release in the store, right? Should it have a hood? Should it have a complex design? We can't really say, right? Except that maybe it should have at least one of those two things. One thing we've kind of been touching on in this discussion is that there's two different types of product features. There are horizontal features, and these features are attributes that can't be ranked. Things like color, style, right? The front design of the sweater, the hood. Different consumers just prefer different horizontal features, right? Some like blue, some like black, some like a hood, some don't, okay? Vertical features are attributes that we can rank. We know for sure that everyone likes a lower price, right? If nothing changes except that the price is lower, we can say confidently that people will like that more, right? And we can say that people always like a higher quality as well for the same price, right? Again, you hold everything constant and just increase quality, people are going to like that more. Vertical features are things that we can use when we're trying to infer whether people value a horizontal feature or not, okay? But when we're thinking about using this sort of revealed preference analysis, what we can definitely say is that, people are not going to like something more because the price is higher, right? Or they're not going to like something more because the quality is lower. Okay. So our final example, we can look at this, these two phones. Right? One on the left is the first row, and the one on the right is the bottom row. Okay. So we don't see prices here. What we see is battery life, market share, and whether or not the phone has a camera that can take sort of 3D pictures, right? So pictures that you could input into a VR headset or something like that, right? So what can we infer about whether people value a camera that takes 3D images? Well, we see that the market shares are equal. So maybe they don't value them. They don't value this functionality, but we can also see that battery life is shorter for the phone that has the 3D camera function. And we know that everyone likes better battery life, right? All things equal, people prefer a phone that lasts longer on a single charge. So given that the second phone has a shorter battery life, but still an equal market share, we can say that people do indeed value this 3D camera functionality, right? Because they're buying more, they're buying this phone, even though it's worse in this quality dimension, okay? This is kind of the extent of revealed preference selection of attributes that we'll do in this course. If you do decide to go on in marketing, you'll actually be kind of estimating these preferences from data. And it's kind of a tool from economics that's really been embraced in the marketing literature and in marketing research. Okay. So the other option, which I'll touch on briefly, is stated preferences. This is conjoint analysis. So we can infer consumer perceived value not based on what they do, but based on what they say. Here we would show people a variety of combinations of attributes and just make them pick, which product do they like better? This is a feature that many survey software include, that a lot of survey software suites include. And it's easy to gather. It has less impact than revealed consumer perceived value. However, it can be a lot more useful when you're dealing with very new products, right? When you don't have enough data to look at people's existing choices and infer what they like, then you're going to just need to ask them, if I had this new kind of product, would you like it, right? That's the best that you can do, right? So if we look at our sweater example again, we have, person one, we're asking them a ton of questions. The first question is, would you buy this sweater at $29.99? Would you buy it at $49.99? $29.99, they say yes. $49.99, they say no, right? Second choice, we're comparing, again, two things, but now it's two different sweaters at the same price. And they wouldn't buy this one at $49.99, but they say they would buy this one at $49.99, right? So this provides kind of similar information, but just through stated preferences. So the similar information is, people seem to value something about this second sweater compared to the first sweater. They, value the hood, or they value the more complicated design. But, that's kind of all that we can learn, right? So it doesn't give us a shortcut to figuring out, what people like, right? Or it doesn't give us a shortcut to allow us to disentangle the hood versus the design as driving the preference for the fancier sweater. Okay. All right, perfect. So now is kind of a good point in the lecture if you're going through to take a break, because we're going to jump into brands next. So I'm going to take a brief break myself, and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, so we'll continue on, getting into the second part of the lecture, which is on branding. So branding is, we see it everywhere, but what is it? So a brand is a name, a term, a sign, a symbol, or a design that identifies a product, right? So branding can add perceived value to a product, could be conveying information about the product and conveying the value in that way. Branding typically helps buyers. It helps them to identify products, to assess product quality, and it also helps sellers by conveying product quality and by providing legal protection for the seller against imitators, right? And as we saw in the example last class on STP, branding can also help sellers segment markets, right? So are brands valuable? You know, they're everywhere. We see companies kind of using them all the time. So there must be something to them. And we can already see from this slide, they're quite helpful in some ways, right? You know, buyers who are trying to identify products or assess qualities, they don't have a lot of time or energy to consider. Brands can basically provide a shortcut based on associations of that brand with certain functions or certain quality level, right? So brands can be super helpful in that sense. But how much, do they actually add? Well, a lot of people have tried to estimate what is brand equity, which is the positive differential effect that knowing the brand name has on customer responses to the product or the service, right? One measure of brand equity is the extent to which customers are willing to pay more for the brand, right? And it's easy to see brand equity with something like an undifferentiated product like bleach. Clorox bleach is identical to store brand bleach, but it's twice the price, and they still sell plenty of it, right? So brand equity, if you have it, then you're kind of generating high consumer awareness of your brand. You're generating strong brand loyalty. It can help when introducing new products, and you're less susceptible to price competition. So let's kind of situate these in what we've learned so far. High consumer awareness, right? So consumer awareness means what? It means that the product is basically in their consideration set. When they're thinking about buying a product, they're aware of yours, they're thinking about it, right? So this can be thought of as potentially, consumer attraction, right? Strong brand equity induces greater attraction through consumer awareness. Strong brand loyalty is the idea of retention, right? Strong brand equity can induce people to stick with the brand. Okay. It's a little bit tautological when we say brand equity leads people to stick with the brand. Well, people sticking with the brand is also kind of like what generates that equity, right? It's sort of a virtuous cycle. Strong brand equity in terms of introducing new products, this can be where it helps convey information, right? You can learn a lot about a product based on the brand that's attached to it, even if you don't really know what the product does, right? An Apple product, when they were introducing the iPhone, the iPad, brand equity definitely helped them there. Apple's reputation for simplistic design, easy to use, and high build quality really helped create, adoption of these products. And being less susceptible to price competition, right? So brand valuation is kind of the process of estimating a brand's total financial value. This is more something for people who are interested in like mergers and acquisitions, or divesting products or divesting brands. How much should they be worth, right? So Forbes estimates as of a few years ago, Apple, their brand value was $104.3 billion, which is large, but it doesn't seem that large compared to their total market capitalization, right? So what is that number saying? It's saying that if Apple somehow lost all association with this Apple brand, would they still be worth a lot? They would still be worth a lot, but $104.3 billion less, okay? Now, brand development strategies. This is was the content of the survey I asked this week. So we have a nice new 2x2 matrix. So when we're thinking about adding when we're thinking about kind of introducing a new product, sort of how should we do it? There's kind of 4 different options that we might consider. So if it's an existing product that our company already makes, and then its existing brand name, this would be a line extension. If it's a new category, but with an existing brand name, it would be a brand extension. If it's a product category that we already serve, but it's new in terms of the brand, that would be a multi-brand. And if it's a totally new product with a new brand name, that would be just new brands, okay? We see all 4 different types fairly frequently, okay? So when we look at, say, a line extension, an existing product with an existing brand name, Cheerios adding multigrain Cheerios, right? They're still making breakfast cereal, still under the Cheerios name, okay? And what about an existing product, but with a new brand name? Well, we saw that, we've seen that in previous lectures with the laundry detergents, right? Procter & Gamble has Tide. They introduced Cheer, a new brand in an existing category of laundry detergent. Our brand extension, so a new product with an existing brand name, that was our Cinnabon example when we were talking about lecture 4, the behavioral marketing, right? Something that smells like Cinnabon, has the Cinnabon brand name, but totally new product for them. And that leaves a new brand and a new product category. So this is kind of an example. Dow Chemical created this new type of product, Styrofoam, which is now used everywhere. Whereas before they kind of just made chemicals and solvents. Styrofoam is now used as sort of a packing material and as an insulation. Okay. When we think of these examples, we can ask ourselves, why didn't Cinnabon create a new brand for its scented candles, right? Why did they decide to still call this a Cinnabon brand, right? So, we can think about the brand benefits and think of which ones apply here. Like brand recognition, always good, but this is basically delivering one of the same benefits as a Cinnabon, which is it smells really good, right? People like the smell of the Cinnabon. So using the same brand, we can say, okay, this delivers the same benefit, right, of smelling good. So it would make sense to kind of keep it under the same brand name, right? When you see it under the Cinnabon brand, you know this is going to smell like what I get from a Cinnabon store, right? So providing that information. Okay. Here we have, for Dow, they're introducing this new product. So this was a totally new product category for them. Not just for them actually, but for this whole industry, they were the first ones to kind of come to this new kind of chemical product, Styrofoam. So Styrofoam is actually their proprietary name. So being first kind of gave them the chance to basically name the whole category. Now Styrofoam, that name is ubiquitous, and sort of it's Dow's product. That's kind of the leading example of that, right? There's also a sense in which for Dow, there was it was a bit at odds with their current product mix, with their product mix at the time, rather. So Styrofoam, as I said, is sort of this packing material and insulation material, and Dow made solvents, so industrial solvents, things that dissolve other things, right? Very different kinds of product. No real benefit to Dow of associating Styrofoam with their name, except a reputation for quality. But you don't learn anything about Styrofoam from the Dow name except that quality. So then in this case, that kind of wasn't enough for them to just call this, a Dow derivative. All right, so that brings us to our survey. The question I asked you guys was, how should we brand the new high-speed rail line from Toronto to Kitchener? So some of you probably Googled Kitchener. If you don't know where it is, most of you probably know where it is already. It's a town that's kind of about an hour west of Toronto. It's on the GO train. I think it's the farthest you can get on kind of the Guelph line GO train. And it's kind of a tech hub. It has two universities, one of which is the University of Waterloo, sort of creates a lot of startups and spin-offs. So the reason I asked this question and I framed it the way I did was because, there are precedents for Metrolinx expanding and creating brand new product brands, right? Sorry, brand new brands, okay? So Metrolinx created this Union Pearson Express train, which goes from Union Station, downtown Toronto, to Pearson Airport in Mississauga. Okay, they didn't call it GO. They didn't call it like GO Pearson. They didn't call it Metrolinx Pearson. They didn't call it TTC Pearson Express. They called it the UPX, the Union Pearson Express. Right? Why did they call it this? Well, they kind of argue that they always intended it to be a premium service that appealed to business people. What is GO Trains and Metrolinx's main target segment and main customer base? It's commuters, right? These are not kind of premium customers. These are customers who are expecting to use it every day, right? So for them, the idea was new target segment, right? Premium service for people flying in to the airport and expensing the train trip down to downtown. Should have a new brand because there's no benefit of associating with GO. New brand also allows them to charge a higher price. People don't have expectations that this will be a cheap commuter service if it's not called GO, right? Something called UPX, they can charge whatever they want. And initially they did, right? They charged $25 to get to the airport one way. They've since dropped that price substantially when they realized actually a ton of commuters want to use this service, okay? So let's take a look at the survey results. Oh, looks like there's a bit of an error with the survey results. So just give me one moment. Okay, so now we should be back. And here we can see the survey results. So we had 4 options for Metrolinx. They were thinking about different solutions they can have to their revenue problem by creating new products or new services. So the four options that they have were an express train called the Go Train Express. Now this would have been a line extension, right? So to serve Kitchener-Waterloo, they're thinking, okay, we'll just brand it as a Go Train. It's a train that's something we already provide, right? So same brand, existing product category. The other option was an express train called the KTX, Kitchener-Toronto Express. This would have been a multi-brand, right? So same product category train, but new brand, right? Similar to the Union Pearson Express. The next options were new product categories entirely, right? So Go is in the business of connecting people. These days, people connect to their offices remotely, right? They don't need to go in physically. So maybe a high-speed fiber optic connection between the two cities called Go Virtual Connect. So using the Go brand name, right, for Go Transit, but into a new product category. And the last option was Kitchener-Toronto, KTX Virtual Connect, new product category, totally new brand, right? So this would have been the new brand type of development, okay? So a good mix of responses across the different categories. Let's take a look at what you guys thought. So starting with line extension. So an express train called the Go Train Express. So I think let's start with Josh. So Josh wrote, most people who use public transport in Toronto will already have Presto cards. So using the same brand can attract more customers as it's easier for them to use with their existing Presto cards. So this is a good thought. It's basically existing brand name allows people to basically use an existing card. And in particular, I guess it's easier for them to realize that they can just use their Presto card, right? So you can use the Presto card at, on the My Way, right, at the Mississauga Transit, on the TTC, which are not Go. But here, this kind of makes it clear that you can use the same payment method, especially now that you can pay with your phone. That might be quite valuable. So basically using that brand recognition in that way, okay? And the next person, I'll say Puya. So Puya writes, a line extension would work best because many people know what Go trains are. Since Go is expanding their line, it will make more sense to just call it by its regular name. People will know what it means just by hearing Go. Upgrading the train lines would be good for people commuting to work all the time, as compared to creating a fiber optic connection. Okay, so basically here, again, kind of like leveraging the sort of knowledge that people would have by having this be labeled as Go, as opposed to something else. People know what this will be. It'll be a commuter train for people coming into work, right? Good. So the next group of people were those who suggested that maybe changing the name might be good. So say Abdullah Shahid. So Abdullah says an express train would work best, called KTX would work best. This is because for a company like Go, multi-brand would just be another train that goes to a different place. And I believe it is important to distinguish between these trains instead of just creating another line extension. So he writes, when I go to the Go schedule website, I can already see that they're using multi-branding. They have the Oshawa Finch Express, Hamilton Toronto Express. So in my opinion, they should just create a new express train called Kitchener Toronto Express. Perfect. So I like this. So Abdullah basically found evidence that there is a lot of multi-branding going on already. It's not uncommon. So creating the Kitchener Toronto version of this sort of express branding, something people might already be comfortable with, right? So again, kind of leveraging brand value, but actually the express moniker is what's being leveraged here. And Tarek writes, I choose to go with a new branded express line because Go's reputation has been declining over the years. Big reason for that is bad schedules and high fees. I also believe that the express train has a higher value proposition than the fiber optic connection because you're able to serve a greater number of commuters, especially as we're exiting the pandemic. hopefully. With a multi-brand strategy, KTX can get away from the bad name that Go has been building. So here, negative brand association with Go. Even though Go conveys information about what the product is, the quality of Go in Tarek's mind is low. So associating with the Go name is not good. So even though it conveys information, the quality association is bad. So better to call it something new. Okay. So that's good, kind of the trade-off between the quality association and the information provision. Okay. The next, and I guess the biggest set of respondents said a high-speed fiber optic connection called Go Virtual Connect. So let's see here, Yasmin writes, I believe presenting a high-speed fiber optic connection is better than an express train since most of the people work remotely because of COVID-19, and there's many big tech companies in Kitchener that would definitely appreciate a high-speed connection. As for the name, Go Virtual Connect is better since the majority of people know about Go Transit, so they recognize this new service faster. Okay, so Go Transit, Go Virtual Connect, the brand association is a good one. People will know that this is kind of offered by, a potentially reputable company. And yeah, she thinks that the fiber optic connection is maybe better value proposition going forward, given people's work from home and study from home habits have changed since the pandemic. All right, Eric writes, Go Virtual Connect is the best option, mainly due to the large budget deficit. Okay, good. So Eric's mentioning the budget deficit. An outright extension of the Go train line might be the best, but budget constraints mean that would require a lot of expenditure. So something that would require less infrastructure is maybe a fiber optic connection. Perfect. And the reason it should remain as Go and not KTX is so it can be associated with a train service brand. That might have positive spillover on Go. If the connection's fast, then people will think that the trains are fast. Nice. And, maybe this could lay the foundation to an expansion later that people would already be comfortable with because Go is already kind of serving that route with this fiber optics. Okay, cool. So good. So bringing up the budget, right? This is definitely an issue. You kind of want to do something that's cost effective. And here Eric sees kind of future brand value and positive spillovers between this new product and the existing products. All right, so lastly, we come to high-speed fiber optic connection, KTX Virtual Connect. So Shakir writes, yeah, pandemic-related deficit, new products related to transportation doesn't seem like a good idea. Fair enough. Using the Go brand might lead to image confusion of the brand. Okay, so that's something good, that's new. People might get confused if they see something called Go, that's, internet service. Maybe that will do more harm than good. People will not really know what Go is in the business of anymore. And yeah, just finalize the best option would be a new brand. So KTX Virtual Connect. And finally, we'll go to Jillian. Jillian writes, so there's a general decrease in the use of Metrolinx's products. So KTX Virtual Connect, it may attract a different target market if it's presented as a separate brand. So it may help to limit any association of the current brands with the ones currently in place. Moreover, as this is targeting a regional market, maybe this is another good reason to have a new brand. Good. So yeah, regional market, different segments. So we have seen different brands for different segments might be a smart thing to do. This might be one of those cases, right? So I think part of the discussion here has been on whether the association, the Go name, is a positive or a negative association, right? Is this a signal of quality and reliability, or is it not? We know that it conveys information that it's kind of a commuter rail service. So that's part of the question too, right? Do we think that the KTX or this express train service would be used by commuters. Maybe, right? A lot of people have been moving further and further away from Toronto and still commuting downtown, right? So that might be a reason why you might want to go with GO Train Express. But a lot of these are questions that prompt research, right? You'd want to maybe run a survey or see what people's perceptions actually are of the brand, and what they think, GO Train or KTX means to them. Right? Perfect. Cool. So let's kind of move on and move towards wrapping up the lecture. So we have other brand development strategies. So brand partnership, other than these kind of 4 options, we can do co-branding. You can leverage a partner's reputation. So for particular attributes, for quality, this often comes at a premium price. So in these examples, we see Tide, and this Tide has Febreze included in it. So, here we have a positive association, particular attribute, Febreze, the smell of Febreze. And you can imagine that this Tide with Febreze will cost a little bit more. Same thing, Head and Shoulders. You have this one with the smell of Old Spice. For these co-branding exercises, all of these brands are owned by the same company. This is all Procter & Gamble. So, this was easy for them to accomplish, but we do see more and more a lot of collaborations. Okay, cool. So just like with product attribute choices, marketers have to make a lot of important decisions when coming up with comprehensive branding strategy. So these are kind of the big 4 that are covered in the textbook. So we've talked about brand development already. We'll leave brand sponsorship to textbook reading if you want to take a look. So brand name selection and brand positioning are kind of what's left. Okay, so brand positioning. It's basically 3 levels of brand positioning that you can do. First 2 levels are attributes and benefits. Okay, let's look at some examples to see what this actually means. So here's a restaurant chain, Mandarin, and here's their description. So Mandarin Mandarin invites you to feast on a variety of dishes on our award-winning buffet. Hot entrees, grilled meats, customizable salad bar, sushi bar, desserts, and so much more. So this is an example of a positioning on attributes. Mandarin is describing their market offering and their brand offering in terms of the things that it actually offers, right? Basically this list of products you can get there. So here, Pizza Nova, again, very similar, right? And we can see mostly attributes. So here's a description of all the ingredients that they're using in their product. But we're also seeing a little bit of benefits, right? So they're not just describing here's what you get when you come here. They're also describing here's the benefits that you'll receive when you come here, right? Delicious first bite, delicious last bite, Pizza Nova difference. And actually we can backtrack to Mandarin. You can see there's something to satisfy everyone's craving, right? So that's kind of a benefits positioning as well, right? So benefits is like, what need, either primary or secondary, is being satisfied, right? What taste is being catered to. Attributes is just a description of the product itself, okay? Not how that attribute will benefit you specifically. Okay, so here's another one, Paramount Fine Foods, baked pita, halal meats, beef shawarma, etc. This all sounds very good. So if we distill this down to only the benefits parts of this statement, it says we can kind of grab the lines that speak to benefits, and it's just Paramount Fine Foods provides guests with a culinary experience that will not be forgotten. It's kind of a weak benefit, right? So if we take out the attributes and focus only on the benefit, is this positioning kind of less effective than all of the attributes they're describing, right? I would say the benefits of food are pretty obvious. So this positioning is fairly ineffective, right? This does not serve to differentiate Paramount. Whereas with attributes, right, if they took out all the benefits and only left attributes, would this be less effective? No, not really, right? This is still pretty effective. And the benefits of food, again, are pretty obvious. Here we want to know what are the specifics of what we'll get at Paramount. Okay. So often we combine attributes and benefits when we're positioning our brand. Sometimes the benefits don't need to be explained, like with food. In other cases, positioning by attributes is very ineffective. So here's an example of that. Here we have different Colgate products, so toothpastes, and we have the different attributes of those products. So Colgate Total, the attribute is 12-hour germ-fighting protection. For Sensitive Pro Relief, it penetrates to the nerve. Total Advanced, it's an advanced cleaning silica system. So these are the specific attributes, but apart from, some of them, which is like kind of sort of describing like 12-hour germ fighting protection, really what you care about are the benefits, right? So will this prevent oral health or oral diseases, right? Will this provide relief if I have sensitive teeth, right? For Total Advanced, will this like maintain a very clean feeling, right? These are the benefits that we care about. We don't really care about how we get there. What we care about is the benefit that's being provided, right? So the positioning would be pretty weak if it relied only on the attribute of the product, okay? So that's positioning on benefits versus attributes. Beyond benefits and attributes, we can think about kind of conjuring up emotions as part of sort of an augmented product. This is something that both Red Bull and Chipotle are kind of known for doing. And the idea is to sort of tap into emotions, right? So create this augmented product layer that sort of helps people connect on an emotional level with the brands, okay? So, if done right, this can kind of be a very powerful brand positioning strategy. Why do Mandarin and Paramount not promote these kinds of approaches, right? Why do they not try to tap into emotions the same way that, say, Red Bull or Chipotle are doing with these kind of augmented products? One answer is, of course, budget. As always, it's expensive to try to do these more comprehensive, emotion-driven marketing campaigns. So maybe it's only cost effective for global brands. Another possibility is that these brands do try to do it in some limited way. A place like Mandarin or Paramount is going to try to create those associations of like family dinners, family gathering, or gathering with friends, right? Kind of conjure up that emotional sense that this is the place to meet and have a good time, right? So even without like a big branding campaign, you can still try to tap into those emotions. Okay, so that's positioning. Last thing of the lecture, selection of brand names. There's a few rules that you want to follow when you're selecting a brand name, okay? So good brand names are going to suggest something about the product or its benefits. They're easy to say. They're distinctive. They're extendable or adaptable to new products. And they translate well into other languages, okay? So, and lastly, good brand names are trademarkable. They can be registered. They can be legally protected, right? Here we have a TV station in the US. Before, it was a generic name, which is the category of sort of fiction, science fiction, and they changed it to something which they can register, right, and protect. So brand name selection, let's look at some examples. So just suggest something about the product or the benefits, and it's easy to say, recognize, and remember. Staples, good one here. Suggest something about the products. Staples, an office supply. This is an office supply store, right? Staples also has another meaning. Staples means necessities. So kind of works on that level too, right? Here's another one. You can kind of interpret this, match.com, right? So this would be a dating website. Suggest something about the product. Yes, match with people. Easy to say, recognize, and remember. And here's a great one, pizza, pizza. What can you get there? Pizza. Easy to say and remember. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about, say, pizza, pizza is they don't just sell pizza. They sell all kinds of things, right? Salad, sandwiches, fries, dessert options, chicken wings. They have clearly established their identity, pizza, pizza, but you don't want to try to do too much for too many. You don't want to suggest all of the benefits of your products, because that would create kind of too vague and too long a name, right? It's called pizza, pizza. It's not called pizza, salad, sandwich, fries for a reason, right? So even though each of the brands offers more products than the one that shows up in their names, they don't sort of change their names, because that would kind of risk diluting the brand or the message, right? Attempting to get your customers to identify your brand with multiple products is often a losing strategy. It can be best to pick one product as your identity, right? So these are all kind of fast food examples. Now, here's some interesting examples of brands, which we can probably all recognize. These are world famous brands, and we can recognize these logos. Now, what's interesting about all these brands is that these are not the original logos. This is not how their brand identity looked when they first started out. How the brand identity looked when they started out was this, okay? So this one on the left, Starbucks, used to be Starbucks coffee. We used to have McDonald's hamburgers, Adidas sports shoes, Bell Telephone Company. IBM used to be International Business Machines, and we used to have Apple Computer Company. So all of these logos used to have a lot more complexity, but also explicitly advertising a single product, right? So when we think about what IBM does now, they do research on artificial intelligence and nanotechnology. They provide infrastructure services. They provide management consulting, even business strategy, even marketing is done by IBM, right? So moving to IBM from International Business Machines meant that they didn't kind of need to be associated with this one product anymore. So it's a different approach compared to, say, pizza, pizza. Pizza, pizza, they still kept that one product in their name. IBM got rid of the product and moved to something more generic, right? So once a brand has succeeded in establishing a core identity, it'll often want to build on its success with new products or offering. But to do that, it might need to change its positioning from kind of more specific to more general, right? So good brand names, they suggest something about the products or benefits within reason, right? Within limits. If they start to offer a ton of different products and a ton of different benefits, sometimes you end up moving away from that. All of them, though, are easy to say, recognize, and remember, right? And we definitely saw that IBM created a change in its branding to allow it to be more extendable or adaptable to new products that were being added to its product line. Okay, so that's it for this week. Next week, we'll talk about pricing, which is going to be a really fun one. So I definitely recommend that you kind of come ready to learn and kind of do a little bit of more numeric type calculations and analysis. On Quarkus this week, I'm going to post sign-up slots for you guys to meet with me to discuss your project proposals that you handed in before the break. So we're going to talk, you'll have an opportunity to meet with me and we can discuss your proposal, make sure you're on the right track for your final presentation and your final project. All right, perfect. So I'll see you guys in person next week. And depending on when you're watching this, either good luck on the exam or I hope the exam went well.